I have a few considerations about the current training situation that I'm in, and I will use this as a perfect excuse to put as many videos of me squatting from all angles to justify my slight obsession with squat form. So, first things first, while I'm talking about this, form looks pretty decent. I'm going at a good depth. I do not have any heels popping off the floor, but still this is 60 kilos. Now, why this is 60 kilos? I am feeling a slight pain slash annoyance at the back of my shoulder when I'm doing the back rack position. I'm feeling slightly less pain when I'm doing the front squat, but at this time my wrist is also giving me a difficult time. So I thought I'd reduce the weight on the bar and go for higher repetition. So what I did was 3 sets of 10, and I was supersetting the squats with a couple of things. First of all, it was the hanging leg raises. I wasn't going for as high a number of reps as I'm usually doing because my main concern here was my hanging position. So trying to get as much good tension in the back of my shoulder as possible. And the next thing I was going into was these overhead presses, let's call them, with the resistance band. This is an exercise that I was doing in the past to resolve the issue on my left shoulder, and what this accomplishes is going so slow that my shoulder has no other option than to use the right muscles to initiate the movement. What I'm noticing, and what I think is the big deal with my issue with the shoulder, is in the eccentric portion. I am basically lifting my arm up, I reach full extension, and then on the way down, my delts do not take the brunt of the eccentric. Rather, it's the shoulder that kind of pops out of position, and after this set of squat, I can easily see that the scapula moves quite close to the body as I'm going up, but as I'm lowering the arm back down, there is a slight outward movement of the scapula in the frontal plane. So it's slightly popping off in a way that I don't really know if it's meant to do, but I am definitely not feeling most of the eccentric contraction in the delts where it should be. And this is what I was trying to address. Now, quickly looking at the squat form in here, I was noticing, even when I was doing these reps, a slight, very slight shift to the right, which I believe it's the slightly stronger leg. I was noticing that, and I was trying to correct this, and I believe that I did a decent job at that. Then going back into the leg raises, again getting some nice isometric tension in the shoulder girdle before I go for again some presses. And I can see here, as the arm goes up, the scapula is nice and flush to the rest of the body. As it goes down, there is a slight winging of the scapula, and this is what I believe is part of the issue when my shoulder muscles, my delts, are not really taking the eccentric portion, and then other muscles have to do that, but they are not really meant to do that, and so there is some weirdness happening at a biomechanical level. This is my hypothesis, at least. And the last set of squat from a different angle again. This was mostly to give me an idea of how much I am leaning forward as I go down. I don't think it's terrible considering my leverages, or rather, I think it can be improved, definitely with some extra hip mobility, which is probably something that I can still obtain if I work towards a more upright torso as I go down, and maybe the knees could shift ever so slightly more forward, even though they travel pretty well. And this high repetition squat was a good thing in a couple of ways, one of which was giving me more time to be in these deep positions and hopefully develop some mobility with some weight on my back. And then I was looking at this angle for mainly gauging whether there was any popping off of the scapula from this orientation. I didn't really see much because I was pretty warm at that time. My reps weren't really slow, and so it was all good. I wasn't feeling any pain, so I think that I was initiating the movement in the right way. And then I was experimenting with some bench pressing. I did feel a slight annoyance in my shoulders as I was in the bottom position. So when my pecs are fully stretched, my arms are rather long, relatively speaking. So I go pretty far down, and there's probably a bit of a stretch placed on a few muscles in the calf as well, and that's also what I was feeling. But because the scapula is basically blocked against the bench, there is no scapular movement, so I think I can still do some bench press movements without too much pain at a reduced weight. It's not ideal, but injuries aren't ideal either, and I'd rather have them fixed as quickly as possible. And if I can learn a couple of things or two about the way my body moves, I guess it's something, it's a positive note. So as I'm lowering the weight down, I'm really trying to focus on keeping my scapula retracted and in position. I do not want to lose any of that, because as I'm pushing back up, I still feel a bit of instability in there, and I really need to concentrate in order to push the weight back up in a way that engages my chest and prevents my scapula from doing something weird. And the superset was the usual drag curls. Overall, a decent session, I must say. I learned a couple of things, and let's hope I can apply them in the future. Ciao.